God, all-powerful and all-loving, has created us and called us to be in perfect relationship with Him. That sounds like great news. But does that actually reflect reality? At least the reality that we see when we look around the world or look within us? If we are really in relationship with God, or God has called us to be in relationship with Him and for Him to love us, we'd expect these amazing graces, these beautiful things. Peace, life to the full, harmony, safety, all these things. But instead, as much as we may experience various degrees of it, we also experience the imperfection of it, or even the opposite of these things. Instead of peace, violence and war. Instead of safety, danger, natural disaster, disease. Instead of wholeness, brokenness of all sorts. We then ask ourselves, well, what happened? What went wrong? If it is the case that God has called us to be in relationship with Him, an important way for us to understand how things went wrong is to see that this relationship was denied. In a word, our first parents, bringing the whole human race with them, entered into a rebellion against God. We see this story played out and told in the mythic terms and language of the first chapters of Genesis, of how God, out of sheer love, not needing to do anything, created reality and created the human race as a kind of pinnacle, entrusting to the human race dominion over creation, to till and to keep it. The human race was given this great gift of harmony with God, with creation, with one another, and especially the harmony within themselves, the union of a human body and a human soul. But something did go wrong. For reasons that remain mysterious, our first parents decided to rebel against God. They were given this commandment, as we hear in Genesis, to not eat of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good or evil. One way to understand the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is to see that it represents something that is beyond the grasp, the proper grasp of creatures. Creatures, like us humans, like our first parents, are not God. We as creatures do not create ourselves. We are dependent upon God. Only God is the one who is without cause. And so something about this first rebellion had our first parents, Adam and Eve, striving to be like God in a way that was not meant for them. And at the root of this was a kind of distrust, thinking that God was holding out on them, that they could probably do things better on their own. And so they grasped for that. And because of this rebellion, this rupture in relationship, all manner of disharmony entered into the realm. A rupture in relationship between humanity and God, between humanity and nature. So now there is natural disaster or natural evil. A rupture in relationship between human persons. And we hear how in the story of Genesis and story of the fall, Adam and Eve blaming one another, or at least Adam blaming Eve, and Eve blaming the serpent. And lastly, there's this rupture in relationship between body and soul. The definitive rupture is death. Some people may say, well, if we had this problem, if we caused the problem, we could just fix it on our own. But it's not as easy as that. I remember when I was a kid, my brother and I we were playing around, goofing around in the living room, and someone made a mistake. We bumped over a lamp and it shattered on the ground. And my dad makes this comment that we'll have to pay for it. We have to repay it to fix it. I thought we were going to go to the store to buy the replacement for the lamp. And so I had all the money I had as a 5-year-old in my hand, quarters and pennies and maybe dollar bills, completely unable to repay that which I had broken. A very similar thing, or even an analogous thing, occurs for the human race. The thing that had been ruptured, the thing that had been broken, is so much greater than that which a single human person, no matter how virtuous, could repay. Much greater than what a whole manner of virtuous human persons could repay or fix. For truly, what had been taken away by this rebellion was this perfect, infinitely perfect relationship with God. And the rupture of that has introduced, in a sense, an infinite chasm, an infinite divide, an infinite debt. And the human race on its own could not pay it on its own. But there's even more to the story. Because in addition to the rebellion of our first parents, that rebellion in turn was actually instigated by a rebellion even much more pernicious. The rebellion of angels on a spiritual realm. For when God revealed to the angels his desire to create this unique hybrid of spirit and matter, the human race, to be drawn into relation with him, some angels said, no, we revolt against that plan. And the leader of that we refer to as Satan, whom we identify with this as the serpent in the story of the fall. And this cunning enemy, seducing our first parents, convincing them to enter into their own rebellion so that he in turn can capture them, enslave them, take them away from the God who has made them out of love. And so, no, we as human beings cannot fix that state of affairs on our own. By ourselves, we are like children clutching to pennies, seeking to repay and replace a priceless piece of art. By ourselves, we are like prisoners, captured and enslaved by a much more powerful force than we. But God in his great love has desired to save us. He has sent us one to do so, and his name is Jesus Christ.